This is the W5SC repeater, PL110.9.
Mr. Chairman, I need to make myself very clear. If we uplink now, Skynet will be in control of your military.
But you'll be in control of Skynet, right?
That is correct, sir.
Skynet.
Does anyone need to use the repeater before we begin Skynet? This is Kilo Echo 5, India Charlie X-Ray. My name's Tom. I'll be your net control for this session of the DARC Skynet. Skynet is a weekly net called every Saturday night at 9 p.m. concerning the subject of astronomy. Our purpose is to help amateurs become more familiar with the nighttime and daytime sky, astronomy, and space in general. This net is open to all amateurs interested in this topic. We encourage your participation, comments, and suggestions for this net. Stations with emergency or priority traffic may enter the net at any time by using the pro sign break very enthusiastically in your call sign. Is there any emergency or priority traffic at this time? This is a directed net, so please do not transmit without direction from net control. That would be me this evening, and stations are reminded to ID at the end of your transmission. This weekly net operates on this frequency with a PL tone of 110.9. Check-ins via Echolink are also possible using the W5FC-R station ID or Echolink node 37247. Tonight's topics: astronomy charts, pictures, live audio-video links are available online. Go to w5fc.org right now for a complete list, and remember to tell others about this popular net. All amateur operators are welcome, and you need not be a member of any amateur radio club to participate. This net is around 90 minutes long and is structured in the following parts. General announcements: Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas net, which I can now say where and when you can look through a telescope finally after 2 years. National Space Society events. Discussion topic of the evening: what's up? Satellite. Astronomical Q&A in the 73 round. So let's get started with low power and short time check-ins. If you are one of those, please come with your call sign, your name, your location, and whether you're low power, short time, please.
This is Whiskey Bravo number 4, Mike Foxtrot, India, WB4MFI, Ted, Dallas, low power.
This is Whiskey 5 Golf Uniform Sierra Gus, far, far northeast Dallas, low power.
This is Kilo 5 Uniform Fox, Jacob Farmers Branch, low power.
This is Kilo India 5 Uniform Juliet, Dustin, North Dallas, low power.
I've got WB4MFI, Ted in Dallas, low power. W5GUS, Gus in far, far northeast Dallas, low power. I've got K Uniform Foxtrot Jacob. Could you give me your full call again, twice, please?
The call is Kilo Golf 5 Uniform Foxtrot Romeo. Kilo Golf 5 Uniform Foxtrot Romeo.
Okay, I got KG5UFR, and that's Jacob in Farmers Branch, low power. And I got KI2UJ, that's Dustin in North Dallas, also low power. Anyone else low power, short time? All right, I'll ask these four. Do you have anything you would like to bring to the net now before your batteries fade away or your power fades away? Please come with your call. Okay, here we go. I'll take general check-ins. Please come with your call sign phonetically, your name, and where you're transmitting from.
This is November 5, Golf Hotel Oscar, Lance, in Louisville.
November 5, Bravo, Bravo. Bill in Irving.
Kilo Foxtrot 5, Zulu, Bravo, Lima, Bill, Farmers Branch.
Whiskey Bravo 5, Oscar Zulu Lima, Brendan DeSoto.
Kilo India 5, Sierra X-Ray Echo, Brandon, Wiley.
This is Alpha Golf 5, Papa Mike, Rich in Rockwall, AG 5 PM.
Kilo India 5 Gulf Romeo Hotel, Melissa in Northeast Dallas.
This is Alpha 5, Alpha Hotel, Robert Richardson.
This is Kilo India 5, Papa Golf Mike, Travis in Garland.
This is Kilo Golf 5, Whiskey Victor Lima, James in Carrollton.
Kilo India 5, November Oscar November, Logan and Garland.
This is Kilo Echo 5, Echo November, Eric in Plano.
November Tango 5, Tango Mike, Tony in Dallas. Kilo Foxtrot 5, Juliet Hotel Alpha, Planet Earth, more specifically Mesquite, Texas.
Alright, seems like a good place to pause. Let me go ahead and get all those folks checked in. I've got N5GHO Lance in Louisville, N5BB Bill in Irving. I've got KF5ZBL, also Bill, only in Farmers Branch. WB50ZL, Brenda in DeSoto. I got KI5SXE, that's Brandon in Wiley. AG5PM, Rich in Rockwall. KI5GRM, Melissa in Northeast Dallas. AA5AH, Robert in Richardson. KI5PGM, that's Travis in Garland. KG5 Whiskey Victor Lima, that's James in, I can't read it. Oh, Carrollton, I got it. KI5NON, Logan in Dallas. KE5EN, Eric in Plano. NT5TM, Tony in Dallas. KF5JHA, Chaz, he says he's from planet Earth. We know better, but he is in Mesquite this evening. KG5BZWJ near Weatherford. Jay, may have to go on Echo Link. They're really weak in, but I did manage to pull you out. Additional check-ins, please come now.
Kilo India 5, Papa Whiskey November, Tom in Plano.
Okay, I picked up KI5PWN, that's Tom in Plano. I will now move over to Echo Link. A lot of folks are already checked in, but I'll give extra time for those who are not. If you'd like to join us this evening, please come now with your call sign phonetically, your name, where you're transmitting from. Echo Link only, please.
Five Kilo Tango X-Ray Kelly, coming to you from San Angelo State Park.
suspects. And Kelly, I got you. K5KTX in San Angelo State Park. Have fun out there. N5IMS, that's JJ in Carrollton. I know he's there. He's always there. Even though he didn't mention it on Echolink, but I know he's there just because. Anyone else who'd like to join us this evening, please come now with your call sign phonetically, your name, where you're transmitting from. Okay, well, we had pretty robust check-in on this first round, so we'll go ahead and get going. Do we have any general announcements for this evening's net? These can be of ham astronomical space or of general interest to licensed hams.
November Tango 5, Tango Mike.
Okay, we have Tony, NT5TM. Go ahead, Tony.
Well, thank you, Tom. I was glad you were able to get help for TechNet so that you can stick with us into the Afterglow movie and help us cope with the discussion of Magellan from 2017. I found that movie so interesting I had to then go immediately watch 2001 just to cleanse my palate. I would like to remind everyone that the Dallas Amateur Radio Club is having a lecture and lab, an in-person antenna building lecture and lab a week from today at Dallas Medical Center. Yes, I jumped rapidly from a comment on the Afterglow movie to a comment on antennas. Well, I hope you were able to keep up. Bill, KF5ZBL, did stress earlier during TechNet that those of us who are thinking, everyone else needs an antenna, I don't want to take up their kit, should just go ahead and sign up to use one of the kits. You don't have to wait. You don't have to do first come, first serve. And there are plenty of kits still available, so you don't have to wait, assuming others need it more. So head over to w5fc.org, and I hope that we'll see you at the lecture and lab. NT5TM.
Very good. Thank you, Tony. Does anybody need any fills? All right, let's move on to our usual announcements then. We've got AMSAT, Amateur Radio Satellite Group, has two nets available to Dallas residents locally, one on Tuesday evenings at 8 p.m. This would be AMSAT Net East, Dallas every Tuesday at 8 p.m. on this repeater. This is when Tom, N5HYP's net control, all are welcome to check in. This is the Amateur Satellite Group, so if you might like to learn things about amateur radio, amateur satellites is a great group to be a part of. Remember, though, that the first Tuesday of the month is the ARC Club night. Everybody's driving out there and in the meeting, so no AMSAT Net East on that night. You can also repeat or extend the experience with Dallas AMSAT Net West every Wednesday night at 9 p.m. on the Arlington repeater. That's at 147.140 megahertz with Kieltone and 110.9er with a positive offset. And then finally, don't forget that AMSAT, the main group out of Houston, is available at 8 p.m. on Tuesday night. You must have Echolink installed, and you registered on Echolink. You'll find it under groups and then AMSAT. Also, there's a live audio link that's available on their website, which I have on the stream if you see it, is amsatnet.com. Again, this net originates in Houston. Now, we do have DARC hosted nets. Mostly everybody knows these, but I'll go through them quickly. On Monday evenings, we have a rotating cavalcade of nets starting with the first week of first Monday of each week, starting with ham fixins the first week. That's everything having to do with cooking, because we know not only do hams like to cook, they also like to eat, or something like that. I forget. Boy, out of practice. Second week at 7 p.m. is the MCOM 101 net. This is everything that you may want to know about emergency communications. It's non-denominational, so you don't have to be a member of any group. In fact, if you're looking for membership in a group, that might be a good net to check in on and get the lowdown. That's at 7 p.m. Third week is the second helping of Ham Fixing the Net. On the fourth week, we have GeekNet. We expand beyond amateur radio, all sorts of interesting things having to do with the worlds of science and technology, and you name it, it's there. On the fifth week is the Surprise Net. We had if we told you what it is, it wouldn't be a surprise. So on-air participation is always encouraged. Tuesday evening, well, I mentioned that. On Friday evenings, we have CERT City simulation, which is at 8 p.m. Learn everything about emergency radio communications via CERT-trained amateur radio operators. Melissa, who's checked in on our net tonight, KI5GRH, is usually in net control, but she has a few in her back pocket that also are part of that. So make sure you come by and visit the most disaster-prone city in the universe. Every Friday, CERT City, all are welcome. And of course, Saturdays are our night of net. Starting with TechNet at 7, followed by Skynet at 9 o'clock, and then the Afterglow Movie Net at 10:30. And I'll give you that information in just a minute, although I did not put it in my script. Please stand by. Here we go. The receptionist looked surprised when the man in the spacesuit walked through the door. She pulled out her clipboard, attached some paperwork, and handed it to the outer space-clad man. She began the interview. "Are you a space guy?" she asked. He nodded and gave his name. "Commander Nelson," he explained. "Have you been outside the United States, contracted any diseases, coughed a lot, made bad jokes?" Questions to answer, thought Nelson. The receptionist looked at the man and realized no one had answered the Daily Shopper ad for a 10-year round trip to the outer planets, and certainly not one who brought his own spacesuit. "I'll need you to talk to Mr. Becker, the head of NASA." She pointed her pen at the door behind her. Hastily scrawled in crayon was the sign, "Mr. Becker, the head of NASA." She continued, "Since you're the only guy who actually answered our ad, and you have your own spacesuit, when you come back from the interview, I'll validate your parking, and you can go over to the launch pad. You can also get a free launch lunch on board the spacecraft. Join us for Magellan from 2017 tonight at 10:30. All right, next is the Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas. Where and when you can look through a telescope. I finally get to say that. Chaz, KF5JHA, you want to give us the lowdown on that from KE5ICS?
Absolutely. Thank you, Tom. Well, let's talk about the next meeting first. The next Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas Club meeting will be held on Friday, April the 22nd. That's in 6 days from now at 7:30 p.m. It's a Zoom meeting. Dr. Matthew Siegler, an SMU professor, research scientist with Planetary Science Institute, will be the featured speaker. He'll be updating us on a number of different NASA missions that he's been working on, and that includes the Mars Perseverance rover. Task Club members will receive an email link to the Zoom meeting in advance of the meeting. And the Saturday night public observing sessions have begun again. The Garland one that's held on the first Saturday of each month has started. The other ones haven't started back quite yet. Now, one of the reasons why the Skynet was picked to be on Saturday nights was so that there would be an opportunity for live reports from the TASS public observing sessions, which are also held on Saturday nights. And 2 weeks ago, I broadcast live from that Garland Stargazer Star Party. That was kind of cool. Now, check the TAS website, texasastro.org, for up-to-date information and details about the meetings and the public observing sessions. how to buy a telescope or a pair of binoculars, and much more. I think that's it for the moment. Okay, it's all back up to you, Tom. KE5ICX. This is KF5JHA.
Thank you, Chaz, and you sounded marvelous from that site. So I'm glad you had your hair done, because otherwise it wouldn't have been nearly as effective. Okay, this is KE5ICX, net control for tonight's Skynet. Next section is National Space Society events and activity. Bill, N5BB, you are checked in. Yes, you are. Do you have anything for us this evening about the National Space Society?
Yes, Tom, this is N5BB. Check, double check. I'm checked in. And I'm not check, but I'm checked in. So I happen to be the membership director of the North Texas section of the National Space Society. Our last meeting was this past Sunday, the 10th of April, in Irving at Spring Creek Barbecue. We're back to in-person meetings again. So we meet on the second Sunday of every month, normally at the Spring Creek Barbecue in Irving on 183 in Beltline. At 3:30 p.m. is where we get together, and our presentation starts at 4 p.m. Visitors are invited, but you might want to talk to me before you come just to make sure we're really doing an in-person meeting that month. If you have any questions about joining the National Space Society or a local chapter, please contact me. You can send me an email to space@byram.net. That's SPACE at Byram, BYROM.net. Or look me up on QRZ. November 5 Bravo Bravo is my call sign. On the meeting, our last meeting, the one on April the 10th, Sarah Scholl, who is a manager in the EVA and Human Surface Mobility Program, gave us, she works in at NASA JSC in Houston. Break. She gave us an update on what's going on with Artemis, the NASA program to send humans to the moon. And again, finally. And so her group is working on what they're going to do when they get there. So they're working on vehicles. They're working on other kinds of activities. They're trying to decide how far away to go. So, for instance, their current plan is to drive these vehicles only a limited distance so they can learn if they're reliable. Because if they break down, they need to be able to safely walk back with their available oxygen and everything to the spacecraft. And the initial spacecraft that will be landing there on the moon should be a SpaceX the big one. Oh my brain has gone to neutral. The large SpaceX craft, which is being developed in Boca Chica in South Texas. And so that's the one that's currently planned by NASA to take the first astronauts, deliver them to the moon. They'll take off in a SLS, and then they'll transfer, and then they'll land on the moon in the Starship. That's it. From SpaceX. And when they exit from the Starship, they will be way above the surface. So there's kind of an elevator to lower them down to the surface. I'll tell you, the Starship, how it gets people down to the moon surface, looks like all the science fiction movies from the 50s. It really does. Okay. Again, let me know if I can help anybody with any thing with National Space Society. And we will have some events coming up that we're thinking about doing at that are tentative, starting in May at the Science Museum in Dallas. N5BB clear.
Very good. Thank you, Bill. And what you're thinking of, don't worry, I have the same problem. It's Starship. Starship is the name of the spacecraft that they're going to be, this very large spacecraft. Well, excellent. Thank you for the news. And by the way, thank you very much for doing TechNet for me. It was my turn in the barrel tonight, but I had this net that I was also doing, and then I'll probably end up doing the Afterglow movie net. That is provided my voice does hold out, because I've discovered that my allergies are starting to kick in. So we'll see how this all goes this evening. Crazy stuff.
N5SQA.
Ron, I will check you in. What can I do for you?
I need a fill from Bill.
Well, contact Tim direct. He's N5BB.
N5BB, you said something about Science Museum in Dallas. I know something about a Science Museum in Dallas. When is this event, and at what museum? N5SQA.
This is N5B. There's some tentative things we're looking at doing at the Perot Science Museum in Dallas. The Perot Museum of Science, Nature and Science. One of these it's tentative. We haven't decided yet. That's why I wasn't very specific, but I'll just let you know, since nobody else is listening but for you, except for, right, Ron? One of them is on May the 21st, Saturday, and the other one, let's see, is at a later date, and I'm going to have to search my calendar before I can find it here. I'm sorry, I wasn't prepared for this, Ron. The other one is possibly on July the 7th. So there's two different possible dates. One or both of these may be involved what's currently called the James Webb Space Telescope on May 21st or July the 7th. Again, these are tentative, not verified yet. N5BB, hope that helps.
Yes, it helps. I would be really appreciative if you were to send me an email when you know a little bit more firm stuff about it. But I've got May 21st penciled in and July 7th penciled in at the Perot. And thank you for the fill. N5SQA back to net.
Very good, and thank you both for that information and question. All right, I had one. I'd kind of forgotten about it, but I remember it now, so I'm going to mention it. At the Frontiers of Flight Museum, there will be on Sunday, April 24th from 1 until 4:30 p.m. a STEM activity. It's sort of for kids, but we're all kids at heart anyway, and this part is definitely for adults. This one is, we'll have a speaker discussing the X-59, NASA's newest experimental aircraft, the QSSC, designed to lower the noise created by planes flying faster than the speed of sound. Of course, when they fly faster than the speed of sound, there's so much pressure it causes what's called a sonic boom. So the speaker will be David Richwine. He's the Deputy Project Manager for Technology at NASA. And on the Low Boom Flight Demonstrator Project, coordinating technical requirements and capabilities across the Low Boom Flight Demonstration Mission. By the way, that X-59, the real deal, is here in Fort Worth, probably the reason why we're having him at the museum. He has worked in the aeronautics research for over 35 years at NASA Langley Research Center in Virginia and Dryden Flight Center, now Armstrong Flight Research Center in California. So I think this is going to be interesting. You can find out more information by going to the Frontiers of Flight Museum website, which is Flight Museum, one word, flightmuseum.com/X-59, X59. You'll find the information there. I will be there. It's my Sunday anyway to be there, so I'm looking forward to hearing what he has to say about all that. Does anyone need any details on that? All right, well, we just recently had tachynauts come back from the Chinese space station called Tiangong here I think it was yesterday. And I thought, what can I do for a topic? And that kind of just busted out off the space.com website. And I thought, well, why not we talk about that? So what I'm going to discuss is the Chinese manned space program, and just a short history about what it is. Now, one of the things that's kind of interesting about it is that if you ever have seen the logo, the word for part of the word for China is in I guess Kenji character. I'm not sure what it is. Chinese characters looks like a space station or a satellite. So they use that and then place below it regular characters that we're familiar with, CMS for the Chinese Manned Spacecraft Program, Manned Space Program. So I thought that was kind of interesting and rather clever on their part. So let me go through a little bit of this, talking about just how active these missions are, or how active the Chinese program is. It was developed by the People's Republic of China and run by China Manned Space Agency, or CMSA, designed to develop and enhance human spaceflight capabilities for China. It was approved on September 21st, 1992, and has been in operation ever since. One of the most sophisticated space programs in the history of China, CMS is split into 3 steps or phases, which can be summarized as the following: cruise spacecraft, launch and return, space laboratory with capabilities of extracurricular activities, space rendezvous, and spacecraft docking procedures. As of April 2022, China has successfully completed the first 2 steps, which made China the 3rd nation to achieve spaceflight after the Soviet Union or Russia and the United States. The 3rd step, the construction of the Tiangong space station, is ongoing. Ever since the first station was launched in 1999, CMS has successfully completed 20 missions without any astronaut fatality. We start with the first step with the Long March 2F. Development of that booster, China's first human-rated launch vehicle, began in 1992. It was derived from the Long March 2E, but with a launch escape system and control system redundancy. In 1996, 2 pilots from the Air Force, Wu Ji and Li Qinlong, were handpicked and sent to Russia for training at the Yuri Gagarin Cosmonaut Training Center. In 1998, January, 14 pilots were selected as the first batch of Chinese astronauts candidates. On November 20th, 1999, Shenzhou-1, the first uncrewed Shenzhou spacecraft, was launched from Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center and entered a predetermined orbit. The ground electrical test model was used during this test flight to meet the deadline by the end of 1999. Return capsule spacecraft successfully separated from other parts and landed intact in Inner Mongolia the next day. Despite only limited systems being tested, the mission was still successful. The test flight of the Shenzhou spacecraft and Long March 2F rocket was a success. The second mission was a year later, in January of 2001. Shenzhou-2 was the first formal unmanned spaceship of China, was launched into orbit and stayed for 7 days before the return capsule. In 2002, China launched Shenzhou-3 and 4, both ended in success. All systems of the program had passed the test perfectly, indicating a manned mission was ready to be conducted. The 5th launch, Shenzhou-5, was the first to carry a human. Yang Liwei and occurred at 1 o'clock UTC time on October 15, 2003. 587 seconds after taking off, the spaceship separated from the rocket and entered an elliptical orbit, and it gives the inclination. Let's see here. The whole mission lasted 21 hours and 23 minutes, making China the third country capable of sending humans to space and back independently after Russia and the United States. The second step. The goal of the second step of CMS was to make technology breakthroughs in extravehicular activities, or EVAs, as well as the space rendezvous, docking, support short-term human activities in space. To complete the goal, China launched multiple crewed and uncrewed missions, including 2 prototypes of the Chinese space station. Phase 1 was the EVA space rendezvous and docking. First multi-person, multi-day manned space flight, Shenzhou 6, was conducted during the October of 2005. Astronauts Xi Junlong and Ni Haizhong spent more than 4 days in space and orbited the Earth for 76 orbits. On September 25, 2008, Shenzhou 7 was launched into space with 3 astronauts. During the flight, Zhai Shenggang and Lu Buing completed China's first EVA with the Tian extravehicular spacesuit made in China and the Seahawk, interesting name, extravehicular spacesuit imported from Russia, retrospectively. In order to practice space rendezvous and docking, China launched an 18,000-pound target vehicle, Tiangong 1, in 2011, with a variant of the Long March 2F, followed by Shenzhou 8, first uncrewed Shenzhou spacecraft since Shenzhou 5. The first 2 spacecraft performed China's first automatic rendezvous and docking on October of 2011, which verified the performance of docking procedures and mechanisms. 9 months later, Tiangong 1 completed the first manual rendezvous and docking with Shenzhou 9. I think that's supposed to be reversed. A crew spacecraft carrying Jing Haping and Liu Wang, China's first female astronaut. In June of 2013, crewed spacecraft Shenzhou 10, carrying astronauts, was launched into orbit and docked with Tiangong 1. 3 astronauts spent 12 days on the space station by conducting scientific experiments, giving lectures to over 60 million students in China, and performing more docking tests before returning to Earth safely. The completion of missions Shenzhou 6 through 10 demonstrated China's technical advancement in human spaceflight, ending Phase 1 of the second step. Phase 2, a space laboratory. To further enhance China's human spaceflight capabilities and make preparation for the construction of a future space station, China launched the second phase of the second step, which included 4 space laboratory missions. In June of 2016, China conducted the maiden flight of the Long March 7, a new generation medium-lift launch vehicle with higher payload capabilities of low Earth orbit from the newly built Wenchang Space Launch Site located in the coastal Hainan province. In September of 2016, Tiangong 2 was launched into orbit. It was a space laboratory with more advanced functions and equipment than 1. A month later, Shenzhou 11 was launched and docked with Tiangong 2. 2 astronauts entered Tiangong 2 and stationed for about 30 days, breaking China's record of longest space flight mission, while verifying the viability of the astronauts' medium-term stay in space. In 2017 of April, China's first cargo spacecraft, Tianzhou 1, docked with Tiangong 2 and completed multiple in-orbit propellant refueling tests, which marks the successful completion of the second step of CMS. Now, third step, demonstration of key technologies, and that's currently underway. On April 29, 2021, the second Long March 5B rocket lifted off from Binchang carrying a 49,600-pound Tianhe core module, the largest and most complex spacecraft independently developed by China. Core module entered predetermined orbit about 494 seconds after launch, marked the first of an in-orbit construction of China's space station. On May 29, 2021, Shenzhou-2, the first cargo spacecraft to the space station, was launched by a Long March 7 rocket and docked with the core module 8 hours later. Shipment included astronaut supplies, space station equipment, extravehicular spacesuits, and propellant. The first crewed mission to Tianhe was Shenzhou-12, which launched from Japan Satellite Launch Center on June 17th of 2021. China's first crewed autonomous rapid rendezvous and docking 6 hours and 32 minutes after launch. 3 members of the crew became the first inhabitants of Tiangong Space Station. Let's see here. On July 4th, 2021, 2 Shenzhou-12 crew members, Lu Ring and Tang Hangwu, conducted the first EVA on the space station, which lasted 6 hours and 46 minutes, breaking the previous 20-minute record. The crew returned safely on September 17, 2021. October 2021, Shenzhou-13 was launched and docked with the core module 6.5 hours later. They plan to complete a 6-month stay, the longest one since the beginning of the program. About 3 weeks later, had completed the crew's first EVA on November 7, 2021, making Lang the first Chinese female astronaut to perform an EVA. Let's see, Shenzhou-2 cargo spacecraft undocked from Tianhe core module after completing its mission, followed by its controlled re-entry into the atmosphere. So it's beginning to sound very much like International Space Station or any of the Russian space stations. Let's see, Phase 2, and we're almost done. Station assembly. Following the conclusion of Phase 1, 6 more missions will be conducted to implement Phase 2, including the launches of 2 laboratory modules, the Tiangong, 2 cargo spacecraft, and 2 crewed spacecraft. All these missions are scheduled to be carried out by the end of 2022. Once the construction is completed, the Tiangong Space Station will enter the application and development phase in 2023, which is poised to last for no less than 10 years and could even be extended to 15. So there you have it, all the manned and a few unmanned Chinese missions, which include launching increasingly heavier components into space with their boosters, and the final aim of a multi-segment space station assembled in orbit. And I put my own little thing on this. I said somehow I doubt that China will be satisfied remaining in low Earth orbit. And I think probably trips to the moon will probably be planned in not too distant future. Space flight progress for the Chinese program has been observed in plain sight. Deliberate published plans going forward. In fact, you can go to their website and get a great deal of information about their future plans. Maybe not the way they're going to go about doing it, but their plans going forward. So the Chinese have a very definite and deliberate plan for space, and they are moving along quite well since their first steps. Okay, this is KE5ICX. KE5ICX. Boy, oh boy, I'm net control tonight. Let me go ahead and ask if there's any additional check-ins or any questions. Please come now with your call.
W5GUS question.
W5GUS, Gus, go right ahead.
Okay, thank you, Tom. W5GUS here. I'm just curious, what the Chinese space station looks like. Does it kind of look like the International Space Station? And about the size of it, is it about the same size as the International Space Station? I don't know if you have that information there in front of you, but just curious. W5GUS.
5GUS, Gus. Go right ahead. 5GUS, Gus. 5GUS, Gus. Okay, this is KE5ICX. Boy, oh boy, I'm net control tonight. Let me go ahead and ask if there's any additional check-ins or any questions. Please come now with your call.
W5GUS question.
Well, Gus, no, it's much smaller than the International Space Station. When it's completed, it has what's called the core module, and then there'll be two modules on each attached at 90-degree angles. It looks sort of a T-shaped, with at the end of the tips of the T's are solar arrays, and then on each end, I'll put it back up for people watching, you'll have a space station, you'll have a spacecraft on one end and potentially a experimental module, or more likely probably a cargo vehicle at the other end. One of the things I didn't mention, but it's pretty cool, is they are going to use a manipulator arm, much like on the space station, and any pieces that are being brought up or deposited, they will be actually precisionally assembled to or attached to the station, just like on the International Space Station. So they're kind of copying us in some ways, but going their own way on others. It's quite fascinating, and it is taking shape before our very eyes. Does that answer the question?
Yes, it does, Tom. Thank you very much. Very interesting topic. W5GUS.
Thank you, Gus. I kind of felt the same way about it, and I realized, quite frankly, that I didn't know very much about the Chinese program and what it's been doing, and it doesn't really get a lot of airplay in the news unless you go to the science section, you know, and dig down and try and find that information. Because so much of their stuff is done quietly but publicly, and there's not a lot of fanfare, but they are making all the necessary moves they need to for permanent occupation of space and then maybe beyond. All right, let's move on to the next section, would be Chaz, KF5JJ. He's back, and he's going to give us what's up. What is up?
Why, thank you, Tom. This is Chaz, KF5JHA. My degree is in astrophysics. I'm in charge of the astrophysics labs and geology labs at Dallas College on the Brookhaven campus, and we do call this segment of Skynet What's Up. Mr. Slide Master, that would be our net control tonight. Tom, would you please advance to slide number 2, please? So why is Easter tomorrow? How do you determine the date for Easter? Many holidays on our current calendar are fixed to a date, like Valentine's Day is always on February 14th. St. Patrick's Day is March 17th. Christmas is December 25th. Some holidays are defined as the first Monday of a month, like Labor Day, the last Monday of a month, like Memorial Day, or the fourth Thursday of a month. Can you guess which one that is? Yeah, it's Thanksgiving. Then there's this holiday, Easter, that's somewhere between the dates of March 22nd and April 25th of each year. Why? Well, the simple explanation is that Easter is the first Sunday after the first full moon after the spring equinox. But it's a little more complicated than that. Let's explore this. But before I get started, here's an Easter joke, of course. What do you call a rabbit with fleas? Let's see now. I think I see some hands raised out there. You in the back, maybe on Echolink. What do you call a rabbit with fleas? No, JJ, it's not an itchy bunny. No. Anybody else out there? Bugs Bunny. Oh, come on, that was funny. And this is KF5JHA, and this is Skynet. Slide Master, slide number 3, please. Last week on Skynet, I talked about the moon and its phases in part to introduce you to tonight's information. The determination of Easter has to do with a lunar calendar and not as much to do with a modified Gregorian calendar that we use daily today. The Gregorian calendar is primarily a solar calendar. Several religions use lunar-based calendars to celebrate holidays. The Chinese celebrate their New Year on the first day of the first lunar month of their year, but that doesn't fall on January 1st of the Gregorian calendar. The Chinese calendar is based upon both the moon and the sun, so it is considered a lunisolar calendar. Ramadan is celebrated by the Islamic religion using their Islamic calendar, which is primarily a lunar calendar. Slide Master, slide number 4, please. Maybe I should talk about some facts first. The Earth does not orbit the sun in an even number of days. It takes approximately 365 days, 5 hours, 48 minutes, and 46 seconds to orbit the sun. This is called the tropical year, or the year of seasons. It is the length of time to go from one vernal equinox to the next vernal equinox. I could use the sidereal year, which compares the Earth's orbit to the background of stars, which is 365 days, 6 hours, 9 minutes, 9 seconds, which is about 20 minutes, 24 seconds longer than the tropical year, but I'm going to use just the original one I talked about, the tropical year. Okay. Why are those years different than lengths is an entire other discussion for another time. Since the Earth goes around the sun in 365 days and a fraction, if we only use 365 days in a year, then after a while the calendar is off by a few days, then a few weeks, then a few months, and Christmas would be celebrated during the hottest part of the year for the Northern Hemisphere. So we add an extra day every 4 years, but not always. There are exceptions when the year can be divided by 100, or if it's divisible by 400, or, well, you get the idea. The Mayans had a different idea for a calendar. They had 12 months, each with 30 days, a total of 360 days in their year. Then every 6 years, they added an extra month to synchronize it with the sun. Slide Master, slide number 5, please. If you think that is confusing, let's talk about the moon. The lunar phase cycle, or synodic month, going from one new moon to the next new moon, is approximately 29.53058791 days long. Dividing the number of days in the year by the number of days for the synodic lunar month does not give you a nice, even, whole number of days. The Gregorian calendar year and the synodic lunar month gets shifted all the time. A full moon doesn't always happen on the same date each month. I hope that much is understandable. Slide Master, slide number 6. Now back to our story of when is the date for Easter. Easter, or Resurrection Day, is celebrated on the spring and is connected with the Jewish holiday of Passover, which is also held in the spring. Passover is the celebration of when God freed the Hebrew people and Moses led them out of ancient Egypt. This celebration has gone on for thousands of years. The Jewish people tried to visit or have a pilgrimage to the temple in Jerusalem during Passover. It took some time to travel by foot and even took a while, not quite as long if you could afford a donkey. Traveling at night would speed up the trip, so there were no street lights, so to make it hazardous for travel. But if you could travel at night during a full moon, that would be better. Passover is celebrated on the 15th day of the Jewish month of Nisan, which would place the Passover in the middle of the lunar month, so right around full moon. The Jewish calendar is a lunisolar cycle calendar. Since the 4th century, the dates have been mathematically determined for Passover. Historically, we know that Christ's trial and crucifixion happened during Passover. Slide number 7, please. By an agreement of the Council of Nicaea in the year 325, they set the date for the vernal equinox as always being on March 21st for the purposes of calculating Easter. In reality, with leap years, the equinox varies from March 19th to March 22nd. So having the equinox for calculating Easter to always be on March 21st makes the calculation a little easier. Slide number 8, please. Now, in 2022, the vernal equinox was on March 20th at 10:33 a.m. Central Daylight Time. And the first full moon after that is today. April the 16th at 1:56 p.m. Central Daylight Time this afternoon. And the Sunday after that is April 17th. That date is tomorrow. And now you probably know more than you wanted to about the length of the year, the length of the lunar cycle, and the possible dates for Easter. I hope that cleared you up a little bit. Slide Master, slide number 9, please. Today, on April 16th, is the full moon. On April 19th, the moon is at perigee, which is the point in the moon's orbit that is closest to the Earth at a distance of 365,143 kilometers. On April 23rd, the moon will be at its third quarter. On April 30th, the moon's phase will be new. On May the 5th, the moon is at apogee, which is the point in the moon's orbit that is furthest from the Earth at a distance of 405,285 kilometers. Slide Master, slide number 10, please. On April 17th, that is tomorrow evening, Mercury and Uranus will make a nice conjunction in the evening west-northwestern sky. You're going to have to look while it's still daylight, and it's going to be low in the west-northwestern sky. Slide number 11, please. On the night of April 21st, 22nd, the Leonid meteor shower, Lyrid meteors will reach their maximum with a zenith hourly rate of around 18. Unfortunately, the nearly full moon won't interfere with the observing of the meteor shower. Remember, the best time to see meteors is the hour before morning twilight. I always suggest to visit a Texas state park, like Fort Kelly is right now, or a wildlife refuge, because there are 80 of them, and most of them are away from the city lights. Slide Master, slide number 12, please. On the night of April 23rd, 24th, Piplupids meteor shower will peak with a zenith hourly rate of up to 40 meteors per hour. Once again, the full moon will interfere with the observing of these meteors. I have mentioned that there's 80 Texas state parks and wildlife refuges. I think I have, yeah. Slide Master, slide number 13. On April the 25th, in the east-southeastern morning sky, you can find the moon and Mars and Saturn making a nice conjunction. Just a couple of mornings later, slide master number 14, on April the 27th, the moon can be found just below Jupiter and Venus and Neptune, not far away. Again, they're in the east-southeastern morning sky. Now, let's take a look closely on April 27th. Slide master, slide number 15. If you look at Venus and Neptune, on April 27th, we discover that Venus and Neptune are only about 1/3 of a degree apart from each other. This would be the time and the date to observe Neptune if you've never done so, but this is going to require a telescope, but you'll see them in the same telescopic field of view. So, April the 27th. Slide Master, slide number 16. On April 29th, Mercury and the Pleiades will be at 1 degrees apart from each other in a close conjunction in the western evening sky. Again, you're going to have to use probably a pair of binoculars, and it's going to still not quite be dark when you're doing this. Slide number 17, please. Jupiter and Venus, which are the two brightest objects in the sky, other than the sun or the moon, will be in conjunction with a separation of only about 1/2 degree in the early morning of April the 30th in the eastern sky. And slide number 18. Finally, on April the 30th, there's a partial solar eclipse, but it's not visible from North America. If you go off the coast of South America, you get a glimpse of it. And this is KF5, JHA, and this is Skynet. Slide Master, slide number 19. I told you about the Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas Club meeting on Friday, April the 22nd, and 6 days from now at 7:30 p.m., and also that some of the observing sessions on Saturday nights have already started. But if you want to get more information, go to texasastro.org for about the meetings and public observing sessions. And I don't think the webmaster is caught up with the observing sessions that have already started. Okay, Slide Master, slide number 20. Now, do any of you out there in Radio Land have a question or need a fill on any of the information? Or do you just have a general astronomy question? I don't know everything, but I may know the answer to your question, or someone else here on the net may know the answer to your question. Come now with your call sign if you have a question. JJ has a very good question over on Echolink. Since Easter is tied to the moon, why isn't it observed on a moon day instead of a Sunday? I'll let all of you ponder that. Slide Master, slide number 21 now. So as the moon waned at the end of March, so these words for this segment of Skynet: stay safe, keep well, pray for our world. It's the only one where humans live. And pray for the people of Ukraine. And until next week, actually I'll be doing another segment on Skynet in a few minutes. Keep looking up so you know what's up. And this is KF5 JHA, back to our net control. I'm going to give my voice a rest for a moment. It's yours, KE5ICX.
Well, thank you, Chaz, and your whole discussion reminds me of coming up with long division and remainders and trying to figure out what to do with them. It has a lot of that in your discussion this evening. This is KE5ICX and Net Control tonight. Let me go ahead and ask if there are additional check-ins before we move to the next section. Anybody who would like to join us, please come now with your call sign, phonetically your name, where you're transmitting from. Okay, well, let's move on then. Next section is space exploration and space history, and that would be Brenda this evening, WB5OZL. Brenda, what do you have for us this evening?
Thank you, Tom. This is WB5OZL. In space exploration news, talk about moon water on the moon. Ice on the surface of the moon, known so far to be dry and airless, is likely protected by ancient magnetic fields, according to a new study. Sunlight does reach the polar craters of the moon because the moon's small tilt to the sun, 1.5 degrees compared to Earth's 23.4 degrees. Yet ice's survival has been a challenge on the lunar surface due to the solar wind, where charged particles can completely destroy the ice. Now, planetary scientist Lon Hood and a team at the University of Arizona in the U.S. have found ancient magnetic fields to be protecting moon ice on the moon. In a research presented recently at the Lunar and Planetary Science Conference in Houston, they revealed that magnetic anomalies, remnants from the moon's ancient past, may be protecting some of these craters. These anomalies can detect the solar wind, Hood said. We think they could be quite significant in shielding the permanently shadowed regions. Next, news about Neptune. Astronomers have discovered a perplexing trend in Neptune's atmosphere. Ever since the planet's southern hemisphere summer began almost 2 decades ago, atmospheric temperatures in this region have plummeted, and scientists aren't sure why. Neptune is the most distant planet in the solar system, around 30 times farther from the sun than Earth is. Just like every other planet orbiting the sun, Neptune has 4 distinct seasons: summer, winter, fall, and winter. Spring, summer, fall, and winter. However, because Neptune takes around 165 years to orbit the sun, each of these seasons lasts around 40 years. Neptune's southern hemisphere has been experiencing summer, the period when it's tilted toward the sun, since 2005. In a new study, researchers compiled infrared images of Neptune taken by a variety of ground and space-based telescopes between 2003 and 2020. The team initially that temperatures in Neptune's southern hemisphere would increase as it entered summer. However, the images revealed that atmospheric temperatures in the southern hemisphere have dropped by 14.4 degrees Fahrenheit between 2003 and 2018. Birthdays. Frederick Hawk, April 11th, 1941. He flew on STS 751A and 26. Piers Sellers, April 11th, 1955. Flew on STS 112, 121, and 132. William E. Thornton, April 14th, 1929. STS 8 and 51B. Marcia Ivins, April 15th, 1951. STS 32, 46, 62, 81, and 98. Gregory Harbaugh, April 15th, 1956, STS 39, 54, 71, and 82. John L. Phillips, April 15th, 1951, STS 100, Soyuz TMA-6 since Expedition 11, and STS 119. David M. Brown, April 16th, 1956, STS 107, which of course was the tragic Columbia crash, and he, of course, died in that disaster. Michael Barrett, April 16th, 1959, Soyuz TMA-14, Expedition 1920, and STS 133. Next, this week in space history, Apollo 13 on April 13 at 9:08 p.m. CDT, 52 years ago today, or on 4/13, just after a telecast on the way to the moon, the Apollo 13 command and service modules, CSM, were rocked by an explosion in oxygen tank number 2 in the SM. Multiple alarms went off, both in space and on the ground, led by Flight Director Glenn Lunny. Flight controllers and astronauts Lovell, Swigert, and Hayes troubleshooted the potentially fatal event. They used the attached lunar module as a lifeboat to bring the crippled spacecraft home safely. Without the LM, they would likely have not survived. April 12th, 1961, Yuri Gagarin was a Soviet pilot and cosmonaut who became the first human to journey into outer space. Traveling in the Vostok 1 capsule, Gagarin completed one orbit of the Earth on 12 April 1961. Vostok 1 was Gagarin's only space flight, but he served as the backup crew to the Soyuz 1 mission, which ended in a fatal crash, killing his friend and fellow cosmonaut Vladimir Komarov. Fearful that a national hero might be killed, Soviet officials banned Gagarin from further space flights. STS-1 was the first orbital space flight of NASA's Space Shuttle program. The first orbiter, Columbia, launched April 12, 1981, and returned on April 14, 1981, 54.5 hours later, having orbited the Earth 36 times. Columbia carried a crew of 2, Mission Commander John W. Young and pilot Robert L. Crippen. It was the first American crewed spaceflight since the Apollo-Soyuz test project in 1975. STS-1 was also the maiden test flight of a new American spacecraft to carry a crew, though it was preceded by atmospheric testing, ALT, of the orbiter and ground testing of the Space Shuttle system. The launch occurred on the 20th anniversary of Vostok 1, the first human spaceflight performed by Yuri Gagarin for the USSR. This was a coincidence rather than a celebration of the anniversary. A technical problem had prevented STS-1 from launching 2 days earlier, as was planned. Okay, that's all I got. Back to net, WB50ZL.
Very good. Thank you, Miss Brenda, and thank you for that report. Next up is Chaz. I got to get him back one more time, and to give you a hint on this week's constellations. I tried to post this on Facebook, and it wouldn't let me. It said some sort of policy violation. See if you can figure it out. So, Chaz, KF5JHA, the net is yours.
Oh, I'm laughing at it. Yeah, I have to be careful with this one myself. Yeah, once again, this is Chaz, KF5JHA. Slide Master, slide number 22. Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week is named in honor of Silent Key Carolyn, KC5OZT. Carolyn contributed to Skynet each week, almost from its beginning in 2012 until May of 2019, with a detailed look at one particular constellation each week. Since there are about 52 easily visible constellations seen in Texas throughout the year, out of the 88 total constellations, so Miss Carolyn covered the entire sky as seen over North Texas in a year. In her honor, we have continued that tradition of a constellation per week and named this segment after her. Miss Carolyn's constellations of the week this week is Sextans, the Sextant, and Hydra, the water snake. Maybe you understand why there's a violation of something, yeah, whatever. Slide Master, slide number 23. This is the reason why all of you are staying up late to listen to this part of Skynet. Yeah, it's the jokes of the week. What do you call a snake that is 3.14 meters long? A python. What do you call a snake who works for the government? A civil serpent. What are the best mathematicians among the snake family? Oh, we don't have Billy on here tonight. Dr. Billy, I should say. Yeah, the best mathematicians among the snake family are the adders. Yes, very good, JJ. I see you've had the answer. And yes, you had Python over there. Very good. What's a snake's favorite subject in school? Go ahead, JJ. You can type it in fast enough. Oh, this is an easy one. History. What did the snake give to his wife? A good night hiss. That goes with the last answer, yeah. And the final joke in this segment, anyway. What do snakes use to clean their car windows? Of course, they use windshield wipers. Yes, okay. Slide Master, slide number 24, please. Sextans is the constellation name for a sextant, an instrument used to measure the stellar positions and often used in celestial navigation. Sextans is one of the more modern constellations created by Johannes Helvetius, named to commemorate the loss of his own sextant, which was destroyed by a fire in the observatory in September of 1679. Slide Master, slide number 25. Alpha Sextans is the brightest star in the constellation, shining at a magnitude of 4.49. It is the only star in Sextans brighter than the fifth magnitude. It's a white Type A giant, approximately 285 light years from the Earth. It lies less than a quarter of a degree south of the celestial equator. Beta Sextans is a blue-white B-type main sequence dwarf located approximately 406 light years from the Earth. It's only slightly variable. It only varies from magnitude 5 to 5.1 with a 15-day period. Slide Master, slide number 26, please. NGC 3115 is nicknamed the Spindle Galaxy. It's best known for the deep sky object in that constellation. It's the only object in Sextans discussed in detail in Burnham's Celestial Handbook. Robert Burnham Jr. wrote that NGC 3115 is originally thought to be a flattened elliptical galaxy of type E7. But the Palomar 200-inch telescope discovery of a flat equatorial plane surrounding the nucleus led its reclassification to an S0 galaxy, or perhaps an E7 or an S0 transition. Today, it's usually considered an S0 lenticular galaxy. Slide number 27, please. Since dwarf spheroidal galaxy is a DE3, that is a satellite of the Milky Way, discovered fairly recently in 1990. It is the 8th dwarf galaxy, satellite galaxy of the Milky Way. It's about 290,000 light years from the galactic center of the Milky Way. Slide Master, slide number 28. Sextans A, dwarf irregular galaxy located 4 million light years away. It's a member of the local group, and photographs it as an interesting square-looking shape. Okay, and this is KF5, JHA, and this is Skynet. Slide Master, slide number 29. Hydra, the water snake, is the largest constellation in the sky. It occupies an area of 1,303 square degrees in the sky. It lies in the southern celestial hemisphere, stretched across about 102 degrees. The constellation was first cataloged by the Greek astronomer Ptolemy in the 2nd century. Hydra constellation is usually associated with the second of Hercules' labors in Greek mythology. Hydra is a giant multi-headed creature. In mythology, Hydra had 9 heads. One of them was immortal. The celestial Hydra is depicted with only 1 head, presumably the immortal one. Slide number 30, please. Alphard is the brightest star in Hydra, with a magnitude of 1.96. The name Alphard is derived from the Arabic words meaning the solitary one, which is appropriate because it's relatively isolated from other bright stars. It's also known as Cor Hydra, which means the dragon's heart. Okay. Epsilon Hydra, when observed Epsilon, you can see it, barely able to split it. It is a binary star with an 8-inch Dynamax telescope. In Hydra is an easy double star to split. Impressions, looks like a distant pair of headlights. Maybe a tiny bit dimmer, one of them than the other one. Slide number 31, please. There are 3 M objects in Hydra. M83, the southern pinhole galaxy discovered by LaSalle in 1752. Bezier added it to his catalog in 1781. Current estimates place this galaxy as 15 million light years away. Though it's a face-to-face, face-on spiral, it appears to have an oval shape instead of a circular one, viewed through an 8-inch telescope. Larger instruments clearly show some spiral arms. Slide Master, slide number 32, please. M68 is a globular cluster discovered in 1780. Messier added it to his list shortly afterwards. M68 appears fainter than most Messier listed of globular clusters. M68 is no M13. If you remember M13, we've talked about that in Hercules. It's a very bright globular cluster of stars. And an 8-inch telescope, it only starts to resolve, M68 does. Slide Master, slide number 33. M48 is an easy-to-find open cluster in binoculars or with a finder scope. At low power and an 8-inch telescope, you can see all of them. When observing this cluster, you might be able to connect the dots and draw roughly a triangular outline to the cluster. Many of the stars in this cluster make interesting pairings or shapes. And this is KF5, JHA, and this is Skynet. Slide Master, slide number 34. There are a few more Astronomical League observing program objects in the constellation of Sextant, the Sextant, and Hydra, the water snake. I have just given you a sampling of some of those objects. The Astronomical League has about 73 different observing programs, most of which have about 100 objects. If you observe just 10 different objects in an observing program each month, then you can earn an observing certificate and a pen in about a year from the Astronomical League. Slide Master, slide number 35, and that is Miss Carolyn's constellation of the week, Sextant, the Sextant, and Hydra, the water snake. I want to thank my friends Dave Hutchinson and Dennis Harwell for the research and the words on deep sky objects that I use, borrow, and steal every night for Skynet. And also at times I use the website constellation-guide.com information. Next time I'll look at Centaurus, the Centaur. And that is all for tonight. This is KF5, JHA, sending it back to our net control, Tom. I hope everyone has a happy Easter tomorrow. It's all yours, KE5ICX.
Very good. Thank you, Chess, for your magnum opus. I think that was the longest presentation you've given without being net control. Thanks very much. Most appreciated. We're going to skip on down to Miss Brenda, WE50ZL, to give us recent astronomical discoveries. You're on from KE5ICX.
Okay, this is WB50ZL. This article is entitled 4 Billion Year Old Relic from Early Solar System Headed Our Way. An enormous comet, approximately 80 miles across, more than twice the size, twice the width of Rhode Island, is headed our way at 22,000 miles per hour from the edge of the solar system. Fortunately, it will never get closer than 1 billion miles from the Sun, which is slightly farther from Earth than Saturn. That will be in 2030. Comets, along with the oldest, among the oldest objects in the solar system, are icy bodies that are unceremoniously tossed out of the solar system in a gravitational pinball game among the massive outer planets, said David Jewett. The UCLA professor of planetary science and astronomy co-authored a new study of the comet in Astrophysical Journal Letters. The evicted comets took up residence in the Oort cloud, a vast reservoir of far-flung comets encircling the solar system out to many billions of miles into deep space, he said. The typical comet's spectacular multi-million-mile-long tail, which makes it look like a skyrocket, belies the fact that the source at the heart of the fireworks is a solid nucleus of ice mixed with dust, essentially a dirty snowball. This huge one, called Comet C/2014 UN-271, and discovered by astronomers Pedro Bernardinelli and Gary Bernstein, could be as large as 685 miles across. This comet is literally the tip of the iceberg for many thousands of comets that are too faint to see in the more distant parts of the solar system, Jewett said. We've always suspected this comet had to be big because it is so bright and at such a large distance. Now we confirm it is. The comet has the largest nucleus ever seen in a comet by astronomers. Jewett and his colleagues determined the size of its nucleus using NASA's Hubble Space Telescope. Its nucleus is about 50 times larger than those of most known comets. Its mass is estimated to be 500 trillion tons, 100,000 times greater than the mass of a typical comet found much closer to the Sun. This is an amazing object given how active it is when it's still so far from the Sun, said lead author Man-Tu Hui, who earned his doctorate from UCLA in 2019 and is now with the Macau University of Science and Technology in Taipei, Macau. We guessed the comet might be pretty big, but we needed the best data to confirm this. So the researchers used Hubble to take 5 photos of the comet on January 8th, 2022, and incorporated radio observations of the comet into their analysis. The comet is now less than 2 billion miles from the sun, and in a few million years, it will loop back to its nesting ground in the Oort cloud, Jewett said. This comet was first serendipitously observed in 2010 when it was 3 billion miles from the sun. Since then, it's been intensively studied by ground and space-based telescopes. This article goes on a while, but we are about out of time. It's from ScienceDaily.com, and I'm going to turn it back to the net. This is WB5OZL.
All right, thank you, Brenda. I'm going to go ahead and take another round or final round of check-ins. Would anyone like to join us this evening? Please come out with your call sign, your name, where you're transmitting from.
November 0, Mike Delta.
And N0MD, welcome to the net. Could I have your name and where you're located?
N0MD. I am, name is Ed, Echo Delta, and I am on the far east end of Fort Worth, around 8:20 and 30, and always enjoy the contents. Couldn't make it most of the time tonight, but I'm glad I got to check in. Back to net control.
Oh, very good. We're getting good signal from you as well. So maybe that's a little bit of you and hopefully a little bit of us with some changes over at the repeater site. But in any case, you're sounding very good. Let's see here. We got 2 minutes left. Does anybody have any questions they want to bring to the net this evening?
If anyone else does not, I could just ask, I just caught the tail end of, was she talking about that huge comet that that has been observed, was recently in the news?
Yes, indeed. Brenda just gave us a report
Normal
on it.
state.
It is the largest comet ever observed.
Okie dokie. Fine business. Yeah, interesting. I had heard about it too. That's all I have. Leave it open for anybody else for the final minute. N0MD.
All right, Ed, thank you. Anyone else have any questions?
W5GUS, quick question.
Yes, go ahead.
Well, to kind of continue with the Chinese slant, why do you suppose the Chinese put their base on the far side, on the far side of the moon?
I'm completely operational, and all my circuits are functioning perfectly.
Afterglow movie net.
Over there, I wonder why. Any conjectures why they put it there? W5GUS.
Yeah, I'll give my answer, and then if anybody else wants to add on or say I'm completely wrong, remember that, you know, the moon is tidally locked to the Earth, so it's always facing the same face towards the Earth, which means that the other side is faced away from the Earth. So you're more likely to have, first off, why did it become tidally locked? And a lot of that has to do with the distribution of the material or mantle or whatever you want to call it around the moon. So it's probably a little heavier on the near side of the moon than it is on the far side of the moon. Also, I would think that you might have a different, I don't know, possible impact craters, things like that. I do know that I think that one of the probe itself, the rover that's on the moon, has been able to find some of these glass deposits that come from actually the molten material from the moon, as well as, you know, the very heavy impact that you get. And it seems to be more common on the far side of the moon than on the near side. Now, bear in mind, we've only excavated or actually looked at a very, very small portion of the moon. So, in many ways, this stuff is still kind of statistically insignificant. So we're not sure what the difference between the far and the near side would be. I also think it could be a technical capability, because in order to get a signal, you're going to have to relay it through an orbital vehicle. I think this is a part of the Chinese and their expertise in being able to do these things, relaying messages back and forth through a third party using satellites in orbit at precisely the right time to command the orbiter and command the rover and be able to get information back as well. So I think it's all those scientific curiosity and the technological part of it that's pretty cool, and then lastly, of course, the prestige that goes with putting down such a complicated mission on the far side of the moon. I think that answers it, unless anybody else has any better ideas you may need. Please come down with your call.
5BB.
Hey, go ahead, Bill.
Yes, this is N5BB. The Chinese lander is in, I'm reading here, the Von Karman crater. It's superimposed on a much bigger collision scar. I'm reading this from this article. It is the moon's largest, deepest, and oldest impact structure. If you put Mount Everest on the crater floor, its peak wouldn't be close to peeking out over the top. That's how deep it is, which is pretty significant since the moon is so much smaller than the Earth. It's of extreme geological interest, as it can provide clues about the way the moon formed from debris thrown to space after a small planet collided with the infant Earth. So there's a lot of interest in that. And the Chinese were able to get a communications relay satellite going for it. But it's very challenging because it's a rough area over there. There's a lot of impact craters over there on the side away from the Earth. N5BB.
All right, thank you, Gus. Did that answer your question?
Well, yeah, there's no answer. Just curiosity. There's probably all those reasons and maybe some more. Maybe there's something with water on that side. So who knows? But interesting to think about. Thanks, Tom and Bill, W5GUS.
Very good. Well, thank you for that. I think it's a very good question, because, you know, the whole exploration of the moon, and we're going back. I think that they're going to be looking at the southern pole region for ice, which was mentioned earlier, and that could be a possible landing site. So anything that they get from any newer sites that was not explored, and the U.S. hasn't been there in many years, will make it very, very interesting. And of course, the Chinese, as I mentioned, my part, I think, are setting their sights for the moon anyway, so looking forward to it. All right, I'm going to go ahead and close it down. Tonight we had 25 and participated on the air, including myself. Thanks to all who checked in. We hope you'll join us here next week and every Saturday night at 9 p.m. to discuss astronomy, space, and space exploration, because on this net, the sky is never the limit. We're always looking for net control stations for this and all the other DARC nets. If you'd like to try your hand at one of these net control stations, Send an email to nets@w5fc.org. You can follow topics and discussions about this net and astronomy in general on Facebook and Twitter, as well as our audio and video streams, video archives, and other useful resources by going to w5fc.org in conclusion of this net. Until next Saturday night, this is Kilo Echo 5 India Charlie X-Ray. My name's Tom, and I'll be closing the net at 22:36 local time. Turning the repeater to its normal use for the next 5 minutes. 7-3, everybody. Enjoy the evening discovering the universe. We will be back in about 5 minutes. 5 minutes to discuss successful. Oh yes, Magellan, 2017. We'll see you then. KE5ITF.
W5GUS, this is Inside BB. Quickly, Gus, are you still there?
W5GUS here, Bill.
Still there? Nothing heard. Inside BB clear. Good night.
W5GUS to N5BB.
Oh, okay, Gus. I want to let you know that, yes, you mentioned something about water. The area that they landed that Chang 4 mission in is thought to have some water because it's a big, deep thing, and they think there may be some water down there that's shielded from the sun, I believe. Also, the far side of the moon is considered a ideal place to build a radio telescope. So there is a wide range of radio telescope there, and the initial Chinese mission included an instrument capable of listening to some really basic radio astronomy over a wide range of frequencies over there on the far side. Anyway, it's really just a really basic mission to see if they could do it, though. It's a proof of concept, mainly. Anyway, talk to you later, and 5BB clear. Good night.
Okay, good night, Bill. Thanks for that amplification there and addition. That is a nice proof of concept mission. Okay, thanks. N5BB, W5GUS, clear.
started. This is KE5ICX again, so I didn't have to do all three nets, but we'll do this one, which is no problem because I didn't have to talk that much. So this week's movie is called Magellan. It's a 2017 film. It's directed by Rob York. It's a low-budget science fiction film, as you can quite imagine if you did watch it, but it actually wasn't too bad. Let me give you a little description about it. Wikipedia does not have a real good entry on it, but I did find something that included a review and a description of the film. So I'm going to use the description part, and you guys can do the review. It says Magellan, directed by Rob York and written by Scott Baird, is described by Aerostream Entertainment as their first cerebral science fiction film. After a series of sci-fi action films, Survivor, a Zombie, and Zombie Hunter. It does sound like action. The story follows seasoned astronaut Roger Nelson, played by Brandon Olive, who is charged by NASA with piloting a mission aboard the Magellan spacecraft to investigate a trio of mysterious signals from different locations within our solar system, one each from the moons of Saturn and Neptune and one from a dwarf planet. The mission is estimated to take 10 years to successfully complete. This extended length of time also is a solo flight, which will test Nelson's skill and his personality and put a strain on his relationship with Abigail, the NASA scientist's wife, whom he must leave behind. Being a NASA scientist herself, Abigail understands the importance of his task, but stress mounts as she is left behind on Earth, enduring long periods of no communication and having to deal with the internal politics of NASA and the press and public interest in her husband's possible first contact. To complicate matters, the Chinese have also launched a mission to retrieve sources of the signals, which puts Nelson in a race as to who can get there first. Having to spend time in suspended animation, Nelson becomes aware of subtle changes that have taken place on Earth during his extended periods of sleep, but the entirety of which his contacts in NASA are clearly unwilling to reveal to him. Information about Abigail and the changing political attitudes towards the mission is released to him piecemeal. Nelson is an efficient and conscientious worker, so trying to avoid distractions, he concentrates on the matter at hand. However, when he begins to retrieve the extraordinary objects that are the sources of the signals, he finds himself being slowly seduced, and his perspective regarding his orders begins to shift. Making realistic movies set in space on a small budget is a major challenge. And I guess we get into the review part here. Yes, it does. So we're going to stop there. I'm going to go ahead and take check-ins from folks. Please come with your call sign, your name, and did you see Magellan from 2017? And even if you did not, that's okay, because this looks an awful lot like a couple of movies we've reviewed and seen before in the past, and we can compare and contrast or otherwise discuss first contact stuff. Why not, right? Okay, begin. I need your call sign, your name, and did you see Magellan from 2017?
November Tango 5, Tango Mike. Tony in Dallas, I did see the movie.
Wonder if we scared people away. I've got NT5TM, Tony in Dallas. He did see the movie. Anyone else who would like to join us, please come now with your call sign, your name. Did you see Magellan?
WB50ZL, Brendan DeSoto. Yes, I did.
This is Kilo India 5, Uniform Blue Papa. Just caught the tail end of your conversation, but again, my name is Pat Crawford.
Okay, I teased out 3 folks. I've got NT5TM, Tony in Dallas. He says he saw the movie. WB50ZL, Miss Brendan DeSoto. She saw the movie. And then I got, I think it was Dustin, KI5UUJ. Dustin, you were very low. If you could speak up a little bit, you're just on the edge with noise. So if you could speak up a little louder. Did you see the movie? Magellan from 2017. I think I corrected your call, KI5 Uniform Papa, and I think you said Robert, is that right? Forgive me if I'm mangling you, I'm just having a hard time hearing you.
Okay, once again, the call sign is Kilo India 5 Uniform Lima Papa. My name is Pat Crawford, transmitting from Irving. Can you hear me any better now? Over.
Yeah, I think so. Again, it was a little soft. I got Pat over in Irving, and I'm still not entirely sure of the call. I got KI5 Uniform Papa. I made that the second letter of the suffix. I may still not have it right.
The suffix is Uniform Lima Papa. So that's Kilo India 5 Uniform Lima Papa.
Thank you. Third time's the charm. KI5ULP, Pat over in Irving. Thank you for joining us. And I think you said you did not see the movie, but you were interested in the discussion and thought you'd check in. Is that right?
Yes, sir, that's right. I'm just surfing the channels here to see who's up and talking. Over.
Well, very good. We're glad you're here, and we're here every night every Saturday night at 10:30, right after the Skynet. So this kind of came about after Skynet because we started talking about science fiction films. So we decided to participate in group watching films, some of them that are really popular and some that are unknown, such as Magellan. And so you're more than welcome to attend and participate anytime. I'm going to go over to Echolink. Jay may be there. He's over in Weatherford somewhere. So let me see. Jay, you want to check in? And did you see the movie from KE5ICX?
Kilo Golf 5 Bravo Zulu Whiskey J near Weatherford on Echo Link. Yes, I did see the film.
All right, I think we got a quorum now. So I've got KG5BZWJ near Weatherford. He did see the film. Anyone else like to check in? Please come now with your call sign, your name, and did you see Magellan?
Kilo India 5, Kilo Whiskey Golf, cruise in Arlington, and yes, I saw Magellan.
All right, KI5KWG cruise over in Arlington. You saw the movie. Welcome back. All right, well, let's see here. What do we do? We'll just go down the list. Tony's always a good starter. He can give us a lot of details, and he's very positive of every single film we watch. He sees things that we don't. So NT5TM, you're at the top. You want to tell us about the plot. What did you think about the plot for this film from KE5ICX?
You know, a basically one-actor science fiction feature film is incredibly hard to pull off. A one-man show is always the most difficult thing, and or one woman, one actor, and you know, film and television is always harder than theater. The monster might just be an index card and a green screen that says monster here. So if you're in the market for a realistic, interesting, one-actor science fiction drama, go watch Moon, starring Sam Rockwell. Or excuse me, Sam Rockwell, not Rockwell. I got the county name in there instead of the actor's name. Yeah, don't watch this. I found the plot completely implausible, hard to take, and annoying. It was, of course, impossible to believe that all these NASA people, with the very few he was allowed to talk to, would keep their jobs year after year. So yes, obviously they were hiding something from him. And they once said, oh, Abigail had a little bit of a freak out. But it was impossible to care. It was just little, little slight hints here and there. Couldn't get interested in it. Why send one person on this long mission? At least you could have picked Gordo Cooper or somebody, smart and calm. It just seemed like a silly extravagance to even bother to include life support if you couldn't include a meaningful crew that could help one another out and take care of them and back one another up. So I found that impossible to believe. The plans for his little tiny encounters with each alien thing on each world were impossibly tightly timed. There would have been no point in attempting a mission like that. I can't believe NASA would have. And finally, I guess in reverse order, the first thing about the plot that I found painfully implausible was if aliens are sending you radio messages, a la Contact, starring Jodie Foster, another wonderful movie about first contact, why not try to transmit radio messages to them? It's sort of like if I send you a postcard, you show up at my house with, I don't know, a school bus full of kids or something who want to take a tour. Hold on here. I just sent you a postcard. I can't remember. I apologize. I've forgotten what last week's movie was. I really had hoped for it, and can imagine it having been made better by editing, even if it wasn't that good. I can't think of a way to make this movie better, except what I did instead was immediately after I went and watched 2001, because the little subplot about the computer perhaps being hacked and occasionally saying strange things in Chinese, and perhaps sometimes doing the wrong thing. They didn't execute that well at all. He overcame this challenge simply by saying, Hal, or whatever his name was, Ferdinand, stop making mistakes, straighten up and fly right. There was just no tension. So I wasn't engaged. I felt neither tension nor suspense. I felt the whole thing was implausible. Maybe I'll go watch Batman again. That made me smile. NT5TM.
All right, well, thank you, Tony. So Tony really liked the film and thought it was very entertaining, and it kept him on the edge of his seat. Very good. Next up is Brenda, WB5OZL. Brenda, what did you think about the plot for Magellan?
This is WB5OZL. Oh, implausible doesn't even begin to touch how I feel about this. First of all, you generally send more than one astronaut on a mission. This is all about redundancy. You send several people up, and they all know everybody's job. If this guy had a minor health issue, then we're just out of the water. It's just DOA. So it's just incredibly risky. And there was no humor. Every astronaut real astronaut shows I've ever seen. They're joking around, and they have a relationship with each other. They joke and talk, and it's very friendly. But he only talked to these two guys the whole time, and his wife. And you had to feel sorry for her, but she was just, what are you going to do? There's a lot of wives put up with something like this, and they bear it well, but she didn't bear it well at all. So we have these messages from space, and we're going to go out there, and they never tell us why the aliens just threw these little balls down on the ground. We never learned anything about the aliens, and or what they wanted, or who they are, what they were doing, and were the balls just thrown down there recently, or did they just recently start transmitting? We don't know. They didn't tell us anything. He went out there and found these balls, and then decided he was going to take off and go on what would essentially be a one-way trip for 38 years, which is incredibly stupid because so much could go wrong. Don't know if he had the fuel or the supplies or anything, and he's going to get out of radio range. They're going to lose track of him, and I think it was a real stupid idea. He should go home, and then they should talk about a trip 38 years out. The set was really cheesy. I'm sure they were on a low budget. The spacesuit, the pants legs were not attached to the shoes. Air or atmosphere could get in underneath there. And, we've taken a 10-year trip to go on this important mission. It's like, oh my gosh, you got to go in 15 minutes. It's like, what? Didn't you plan ahead better or allow more time? It seems a little forced to me. It's like, no, we got to create some tension, so let's have him run out of time and fall down the cliff. So, but on the other hand, I did find it engaging in parts. The actor was pretty good, and you did want to see if something was going to happen. Unfortunately, it didn't, but I didn't want to stop watching it. I kept watching it to the end and kept hoping for more and better, or not more, but better. All right, back to net, WB50ZL.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Brenda. You found the action enthralling, and the special effects outstanding. Very good. Okay, Pat, I'm going to come back to you in a minute or two. I'm going to go down the list and ask for additional opinions, and I'm going to ask you if you think this is a movie you want to see. So next up is Jay, KG5BZW. Jay, your thoughts on the plot for the movie Magellan?
This is KG5BZW. I can't really say I don't hate the film. I to say, obviously it takes elements from other films, and probably does them with less competence, but I know there's certain implausibility elements to it, but I don't know. Maybe I was in a good mood when I watched it. I don't know what to say about this film. Well, I was going to say. I remember, it's one of the, while I didn't hate it, I have to admit it, it just does seem to be forgettable. Oh yeah, I want to, at the very least, it didn't, really tick me off from the very beginning, where, it looked like it was supposed to be, last week, supposed to be some sort of time travel thing or something, but they used synthetic oxygen. What the heck? I was like, I'm not going to watch that. No. But so I was kind of glad we didn't have something that stupid. It's just so many. If you don't know how an automobile operates, good luck writing a sci-fi film. I don't know. It actually kind of like the two. I'm going. It's a character-driven film. What can I say? And the aliens are basically MacGuffins. They don't, or not aliens, the alien artifact. Except for, I guess they aren't MacGuffins because they're very much like them because you don't really know what the heck they actually do. They just make some interesting things happen, but don't really know anything more about it from the first time you're exposed to them. I don't know. I don't really know what to say about the plot. It's like I was in a good mood when I watched it. I was glad I didn't have to be exposed to some synthetic oxygen nonsense. So that's all I can say. KG5BCW.
Thank you, Jay. And now I'm going to go to Cruz, KI5KWG. I'm most interested in what you thought, Cruz. You always have an interesting perspective, and you see things in these films that, Tony's very optimistic, and Brenda just is totally enthralled with the film. So those two alone, it's going to be tough to top them. So go right ahead with your comments from KE5ICX.
KI5KWG, you're funny. Yeah, okay. Let me start off with the plot. I believe we heard this from a couple of relatively unknowns, Arthur C. Clarke, Stanley Kubrick. This was 2001, A Space Odyssey retold by a junior high student, I think. The balls were the monoliths. Ferd was Hal. Never get your computer to lie about the mission. And that's basically what we had here is the primary plot. Plot hole, I thought, kind of analyzing it when it was all over, what happened to the dream sequences? They must have been on the cutting room floor, but I think that was supposed to have filled some of the holes, but they were more or less, the dreams were more or less alluded to, but we really weren't given much of the content of them. So I kind of thought some of the mystery and what was this really about just didn't make the final cut. I'm a nerd. I once made the joke, somebody asked me how I knew so much about a part of an Apollo 12 mission, and I said, well, I had the transcripts on my desktop of my computer, doesn't everybody? And I actually spent today reading some Apollo transcripts. So the unprofessionalism, let me reset here. unprofessionalism of NASA. There was nothing planned on this mission. Everything was reactive. Everything was just kind of fly by the seat of your pants. The dialogue wasn't anything that anybody who's familiar with manned space flight is going to buy. That's just not how things are done. Well, for goodness sake, he was using pro words with his computer that's right there in the room with him. And when he's asking about the hatch problem, I made note of this one. He was asking the computer to analyze whether or not the hatch was closed or if there was some problem with it. And it came back and it said, and I quote, checked out, affirmative. And I was like, that's just not how you say things. So I wasn't enthralled with a cheap redo of the plot. Plot holes. What's the word when suspension of disbelief failed off, and that was primarily the fault of poor dialogue. The dialogue just was very, very awkward, I thought, for something that's kind of well known, almost to the point of, well, I'll leave it at that. So not exactly thrilled with this. My last thought on the plot was don't touch the alien thing transmitting to Earth should be kind of a rule that goes without saying. And that's all I have on the plot. KI5 KWG.
Well, Cruz, I wholeheartedly agree with you, and I've got some additional comments beyond that. And by the way, remember that you can always set SCE to aux, especially if you're on Apollo 12. So, yeah, I've got the same things on my computer too, mission analysis and all that. And I've actually have seen actual report. I've been able to go through actual NASA reports, the real thing, the ones that were used in mission control. Now that's pretty geeky and pretty cool. I loved it. We should get together and talk about that sometime. I think get a kick out of it. It'd be a lot of fun. Okay, let's see here. I do have comments about that. I agree with you on the junior high school thing. Let's see. Let me go to Pat, KI5 Uniform Lima Papa. Pat, you got anything to say? Would you want to rush out and watch this movie, even if it were free? I think he went to bed out of frustration or boredom. Maybe both. I don't know. Do we have any additional check-ins? Please come now with your call sign, your name, and did you see Magellan 2017?
Kilo India 5, Sierra X-Ray Echo, Brandon, and I finished watching the movie maybe 30 or 45 minutes ago. Over.
Very good. Welcome, Brandon, and KI5SXE. I've got you in here, and you did see the film. So we are now talking about the plot. We just really got started here. What do you think? Was the plot, what did you think about the plot for this film?
I think I'm still trying to digest the film. I was drawn in, like I think most people were initially, and then left wanting at the ending with a lot of questions. Yeah, I think that's where I'm at right now. It's just kind of curious as to the ending and why they decided to go with that way. Yeah, just that's where I'm at. I thought it was a good picture up until that point for being able to draw people in with the plot and just as a movie in and of itself, without looking at other movies. Over.
All right, Brandon, thank you. Well, let me give my comments. I think everybody gave probably the best comments about the thing. I agree. I think if you're going to do a solo movie in space, Moon's a better one to watch, like Tony says. One of the more comical lines I thought in the thing was the NASA guy comes in and says to our astronaut, our hero, and says, well, your wife is having a breakdown. We're not sure exactly what to do, and he's got his tie half undone, and he looks like he's in real trouble. And he says, but that's not important right now. We don't want to distract you from your mission. How stupid is that? What a dumb guy from NASA. I don't know. It seemed kind of silly to me. Another thing, too, is there were so many great opportunities to do something with this film, and they did nothing. First off, the things they did to avoid having something interesting happen was quite amazing to me. As an example, these missions to go to the planets take a long time, okay? So if you want to reduce the time, rather than reduce the amount of time to go there, I just say 10 years, which is ridiculous currently. You could say there's a new technology that will allow you to get there in 10 years with the capabilities. You could even make it so that it's 1 G-force to get you there. I don't know. And then you wouldn't have to worry about the problems of the gravity, which I'll talk about later. That whole gravity thing was nuts. One thing you could do if you're on a long-term mission, I remember taking a class talking about capital investment, taking and building something that takes a very, very long time, like the pyramids or, a church or some sort of monument. It takes a very, very long time, and discuss how the heck do you keep people on a project for that long? What happens when the leader dies and you have to do something else? What happens if people are against the big monument thing being built? Those are questions that could have been asked in this stupid film. But no, we end up with the same NASA guy in the same tie and shirt and pants he's been wearing for 10 freaking years. What the heck does that all about? I don't understand. And in 10 years, technology would get better. I mean, he'd have a different background. He looks like he's at a VFW post in New Jersey somewhere or something with what background he had. That nothing changes in 10 years. He doesn't get any older in 10 years. Another thing that drives me nuts, they find intelligent life in the universe. Well, in these little baseball things that he picks up along the way. Nobody talks about what's happening on Earth. What happens to religion? What happens to people? Is there pandemonium? Are people going crazy? The wife, why isn't she safe? So how's the alien doing? Are you two dating yet? I mean, anything would have made it more interesting than just standing there and acting like an idiot. Also, how many times have we told movie astronauts not to touch stuff? They know better. They're supposed to know better, but every one of them's got to take their finger, pull off the space glove, and usually the space helmet, and start poking the darn thing. It never ends well. Never, ever. And you think they'd watch these movies before they go into their own space movie and not do those things that they're told not to do. Breathing now. And then finally, here you go, painting yourself into a corner once again. What a great idea. And in fact, the film kept me interested, even though the science part, which we'll get to later, didn't quite make the grade. But I don't understand why, where was I going with this? Now I forgot what I was going to say. I hate it when that happens. Late at night. Any rate, I can't remember what it was. It was something about the science part, but I'll think of it eventually. Okay, well, let's do do this. Do you have any additional check-ins? And I'll mention it on the next round if I can remember what it is. I didn't write it down. It just came to me. Anyone else like to check in? Please come out with your call sign, your name, and did you see the movie Magellan? All right. Thank you very much, Tony. I appreciate the comments. And I'll breathe a little more deeply this time so I don't go into some sort of a tizzy. Okay, we're going to the top of the list. The next section we talk about is the acting. This should go quickly. Let's start with Tony. NT5TM. What did you think about the acting in this film, Tony? Or the actors, for that matter?
Not much. Mostly bad things. I have a lot of notes about things I want to rip into in the third round, but for characterization and acting, I will just say that the only character I appreciated in any way was Abigail. I would simply have divorced him before the mission. I can't imagine. Really, you just want to disappear for at least 10 years on this suicide mission? That's a dumb job. I want a husband who only does smart jobs. Goodbye. I wasn't interested in the characters, didn't care about them, just wish she would have left him, would have saved her some NT5TM.
All right, that was quick, but that's probably all the characterization we're going to be able to talk about anyway. WB50ZL, Brenda, your thought on characterization?
WB50ZL. Well, Neil and Ferdinand were both incredibly annoying, and I know what they were trying to do. Let's do another Hal, or another Kit, or give personality to a computer, which doesn't ever happen in this world. They're just computers. They don't have personalities. We don't need or want them to have personalities. And you couldn't trust either one of the computers, really. They never explained why Ferdinand was speaking in Chinese. They never explained that, which was extremely frightening. I'd just like to know what happened to him. There just weren't enough actors here to talk about. Low budget. They couldn't afford a whole mission control, or scientist, or anybody giving him advice. It's almost like something third graders put together. I'm sure this was somebody's pet project that he really loved, but it was just underdone, underfunded. It just didn't come together. And it may have been a clever idea to start with. It just didn't work. The wife was probably the most believable of anybody, but even then, I really just didn't care much about the characters on the whole. And I wish we had had more to say about the aliens. It would have been more interesting had he come upon some, made contact or something, because all we got from this is they gave him weird dreams. Okay, so what? Still don't know anything about him. I would have liked to have had some communication. So it just left me wanting. Back to net, WB50ZL.
Very good. Thank you, Brenda. Next up is Jay, KB5BZW. Jay, your thoughts on characterization for Magellan, KE5I6.
KQ5BZW. Everybody's pretty flat here. I actually like the AI characters just because they are annoying. That's let's just say you got Siri, the Apple AI. Of course, that's not quite all located on your phone. That uses the cloud, as it were, to do some of the processing that Siri does. But I kind of got the feeling that somebody has been using Siri for a number of things, or Alexa, to those, and just wanted to bring in how annoying it can be to actually interface with those it's hard for me to even call them AIs. They are kind of AI-ish, but they are remarkably stupid. And these AIs were just only a little bit smarter than that. I mean, you could actually have a human conversation with them. Yes, yeah, like Hal in 2001, but and like, how much is it from 2001? How much is it from modern life? I don't know. I wanted to. I actually remembered something I wanted to say. The whole thing just. I know there's all the implausibilities of the film, which I was prepared to forgive until the very last act, where it's like, oh, I gotta go to the orc cloud. Yeah, that was just. The heck was that? And you don't really understand the character's motivation other than he's like Princess says, like, oh, he can see in these dreams. Yeah, okay, so what are we getting? Some sort of like an Elijah moment here or something? I don't know. Yeah, it's all weird. There's just not really much to say about everybody. And yeah, you would have expected a little bit of change, at least a tip. I don't know. I'll say my rest on the third round, I guess. KG5 BCW.
All right, Jay, thank you, and I empathize with your frustration with this film because it's like coming up empty. All right, next, Cruise, KI5KWG, your thoughts on characterization.
Yeah, KI5KWG. The main actors, which to me were the astronaut whose name escapes me, and Abigail, and I thought they were okay. I don't know that he was really cast properly. I think the wife did a good job, and by the way, why didn't they just put her in stasis when he was in stasis? But anyway, I thought they did pretty well with the dialogue they were given. And not really this film's fault so much as the circumstances. I happen to be listening to a audio book, Best Science Fiction of the Year. I think it came out in 2016. I've got it on my Audible. And so many of the stories are of AIs, artificial intelligence, in that volume. And it's the bright and chipper voice being used for these AIs it's gotten really old for me about 10 stories in. And it very much reminded me of the Neil voice in Magellan here. And I'm tired of that. I think somebody else mentioned that too, maybe Brenda. And by the way, Brenda, I agreed on that. I had written down in my notes the spacesuit out of cotton slacks. Yeah, that didn't go any very well. But like I think all of us, I have a lot more to do about special effects than to say about special effects than I do about the characterization. I believe that's all I've got on this. Back to you, Net.
Very good. Good comments as always. Okay. Let me ask, are there any additional check-ins at this point? Anyone would like to join us and discuss the movie Magellan from 2017? This is KE5ICX. Please come out. All right, I had a couple of comments. I kept thinking about the name and of our astronaut, which is Nelson. And of course, I immediately thought of Tony Nelson from I Dream of Jeannie. Well, that's not an idle threat. That's a direct relationship, because if you remember, Major Healy from I Dream of Jeannie, his buddy, they always got in trouble. His first name was Roger. So we had Roger, Healy, and Tony Nelson, and in this movie we had Roger Nelson. Not he's too well disguised, but, you know, why not, right? So now you know. The whole motivation of him going to the Oort cloud made no sense to me. Perhaps if there was a better way of connecting the aliens trying to talk to him in that oblique way. And, I remember what I wanted to, I think I remember what it was I wanted to say. Why the heck do you have to go and pick up 3 of these orbs? What does that do for you? Each orb didn't bring anything to the party. I guess maybe because we had that communication system going that was in real time. That helped. But why 3 in different locations? At least in 2001, A Space Odyssey, the idea was that man was starting to evolve, moving from his ancestral primate beginnings and almost extinction to the next thing being the spacebound or space able, and going to the moon and finding it on the moon. That makes sense. And then the message is then beamed out to Jupiter, and then you've got to get out there. You've got to build the technology to get there. Well, fortunately, they had the technology already built. I mean, the year was, what, 2001? So we all have interplanetary spaceships by then, so it was no big deal. 21 months there, and we move on to the next evolution of life. This thing had 3 baseballs that kind of talked to one another, sort of, but we didn't know why or what or how. And did he go in the right order? I don't know. How do you know he wouldn't go? I guess because he was heading further out into the solar system. And now he's going to go to the Oort cloud? What's he going to find there? A softball? Give me a break. And why would he want to go? Is he that in love with the 3-day lake and the little foresty thing and the wifey that's gone crazy? What the hell's wrong with this guy? And talk about astronaut. He is the dumbest astronaut on top of astronauts, with the possible exception of Taylor from Planet of the Apes, who couldn't even look up in the sky and see that the moon's been up there. Oh, there's Tycho Crater, dummy. Astronauts. They're not as smart as they think they are. Okay, I'm breathing again. Let's see. I think that's all I had on the characterizations. Okay, we're moving on to what we've all been waiting for. Tearing this movie apart based on its special effects. Now, in the process of doing that, if you find something you would like to go back on and choke the living daylights out of, by all means, just stop and say, I had another comment on fill in the blanks and do that, and then you can go back to the cardboard sets. So let's start at the top with Tony, NT5TM. Tony, your thoughts on the special effects. And don't forget, if you got something on music, photography, sound, any of those things, you can add that into. So go ahead from KE5ICX.
Oh, yes, where to start? Tom, thank you. You know, it's always painful if I'm the only one who doesn't like something or if I'm the only one who does like something. So at least we have unity in our urge to chastise these people over their so-called film. Cruz, KI5KWG, I wanted to thank you in particular for your comment about 2001 was recalled by a junior high student. Once Erin is back in the room here, I'm going to pass that on to her because I think she'll appreciate it. I felt a little sad when they talked about the perfect major triad of sounds. KC5OZT, as she tried to watch the movie with us, would have told us whether that was true or not and what the notes were. It was also noteworthy that those were not pure tones. They were not unmodulated sine waves. They had several kinds of distortion on them, as well as a little clicking noise that they received at the beginning of the movie. And you know, if this had been Carl Sagan writing it, they then would have found hidden meanings and instructions, perhaps, on how to build a warp drive to go visit the orbs faster. But no one can demodulate anything in this movie. Let's see, we've already talked about the absurdity of the solo mission. Thank you, Brenda. I liked tearing into that. I'm glad you did too. No effort ever spent here on variable gravity, I see. That appears in my notes like 4 times. It's always 1G on the spaceship. It's always 1G on each place he's going. They just can't seem to accomplish anything, even to the extent that old Robert Heinlein thing we saw, Destination Moon, where they, at least tried to do some things with harnesses to lighten the gear they were moving and at least make people walk slowly when they were on the moon. But no, they couldn't do that. As outdated as that movie was, it sure got a lot of the technical details right. They must have hired somebody who could do math. Let's see. I wasn't happy with their portrayal of direction finding. Surely with active electronically scanned arrays and you're passing over the planet you're looking at for the transmitter, you can locate where it is pretty closely. You don't need to use your little smartphone, but the rooms on the space shuttle thing, the rooms on the spacecraft were too big. The lander was too shuttle-like. They were too big and too bland. They had clearly copied things from other space vehicles. There were tile numbers in the landing craft, black tiles on the bottom. On the interplanetary spinning spaceship, things were labeled like they are on the ISS with, overhead, aft, and so forth, how they help them keep their orientation. But yet almost none of that space seemed to be in use for anything. What was it even there for? It was too big, too bland, too empty. It even had helpful hints like, do not utilize this space. I think they took that advice about the whole movie. Yes, that spacesuit. I didn't think it was slacks. I thought it was cheap overalls. The life support backpack wasn't reasonably heavy or large. They could have at least sold some closed cell foam or something to be inside of it to give it a little bulk and stiffness, and they didn't do that. Repeatedly, we see his helmet fogging up badly. Now, that does sometimes happen to real astronauts, particularly in the Gemini program when they didn't know how to do thermal control right, and the astronauts got dangerous heat stress. But really, in the future, couldn't the filmmakers even have used a vacuum cleaner hose and a little computer cooling fan and blown some air through his costume so the helmet didn't fog up? I objected to the implausible science when he steps into the liquid methane, and Neil says, well, your suit was designed for the vacuum space. Vacuum isn't very thermally conductive. Liquid methane is. It would have cooled him far faster than the vacuum of space. Yeah, it was is the production design of that spaceship. I have a bunch of notes here that relate to that. Totally unhappy about it. They couldn't keep it small and simple. They couldn't go big and complicated. It was just like a bunch of empty cubicles, an office that people had moved out of. All this empty space. Oh, and his camera that he took into space even had the cheap little strap that came with it. The strap they give you with your camera that most people replace with a more comfortable one. NASA can't buy a camera strap. I really thought they got the light travel delays all wrong. I think the farthest it got was 4 hours wrong trip, and that's not even appropriate to Neptune, never mind Eris. I mean, that's out past Pluto. I mean, they should have been talking about 17 or 18 hours one-way kind of stuff, not 4 hours round trip. And let's see. You know, an illusion they missed was that when he collects the three, we really feel like he's got a set of these three magical space spheres, and that they should do something when they're all brought together. And he thought that too. He tries holding them together. It would have been awfully neat, even had some good foreshadowing, even reflected good writing, if they had done something to signal to him that there was one missing. You know, some communication, but they didn't. Anyway, I think that covers everything else that was in my notes. Thank you, everybody, for tearing up this film with me. I've enjoyed it. It's your partnership that makes it worthwhile to yell at these things. NT5PM.
Thank you, Tony. And, you know, the only thing that could make this even better would be to have the home phone number of the director and calling him at 2 o'clock in the morning and telling him how much you love this film. Next is Brenda, WB50ZL. Brenda, tell us anything you want. Special effects, starting with special effects. I'm sure you can find something really constructive to say about the special effects from KE5ICX.
This is WB50ZL. So special effects were pretty lame. Little models, the things that could really have made a difference, they just ignored. There's no buttons and lights and gauges or anything. He's just sitting there. And it was a totally unbelievable spaceship. It's not the kind of spaceships that we grew up on that gave us the desire to go into space and to be an astronaut. He is the dumbest astronaut ever. You know, when our astronauts went to the moon, did they touch the rocks? No. Did they expose themselves to the air? No. Did they contaminate everything? No. They were extremely careful because I think a fitting in is if this guy had picked up some kind of a lethal bug from the life forms there and just died, and that's the end of the mission. That would have been more fitting because he exposed himself to everything, and he exposed that environment to himself. He could have released some deadly virus and killed that new life that they just discovered. And he just didn't seem to understand that concept. In real life, they actually test astronauts for their intelligence and education and being fit for the mission, but not him. I mean, how did he get to go? How did they choose him of all the possible candidates? And, you know, the three balls that was just a dud. They didn't do anything except give him hallucinations. So what? You know, they should have communicated something of relevance, you know, told us about who they are and what they're doing and given us the secrets to the universe. And then you talk about irresponsible. Instead of coming straight home with these balls so they could be studied and analyzed, he takes off with them. And, when he dies, when and if he dies, there's no way to get those balls back home, and the mission controllers on Earth are not going to know where he is, and he's going to be dead, and they're just going to be lost. And, maybe they'll be transmitting, maybe, but, our first big opportunity to connect with other life, and he just totally botches it. All right, back to net, WB50ZL.
Boy, you're very critical. It's just a movie, Brenda. Boy. And he could have just sent it by Federal Express. They go everywhere. All right, next is JKG5BZW. Did I say JKG5BZW? What is wrong with me with your call sign tonight? Jay, your thoughts on anything you want and or the special effects from KE5ICX?
KE5BZW. Well, I don't know. It's one of those things, like, you want to be able to forgive them for, you go to another planet. Yeah, and somebody said that there was no, I can't remember how they phrased it, sub 1G filming. No, they did attempt it. I know for a fact, because there was a aspect, there's like one, it's where they were filming and the rock did not fall at 1G speed. I'm pretty sure they used a high-speed camera and it was, or it's not even high speed. I guess your phone can probably the speed film at a certain rate and probably be slowed and look like that. So I guess anyway, the whole point being, yeah, they did attempt it at least once. Yeah, and Tony's right. I didn't think about the actual times. I was just happy that they didn't have real-time communications like some films do. And it's like but then of course I would have just kind of given up completely probably. About 4 hours flight to get to the planet, to Neptune from the sun, and we're 8 minutes, so it's going to be plus or minus 8 minutes to 4 hours. Anyway. There was a lot to that. I mean, yes, the spacesuit looked a little bit pretty flimsy for. I mean, you would expect them to plan for if they're going to go to a planet, they'd have some sort of extra special spaceship, spacesuit. So I just kind of imagined that they had an extra special spacesuit, even though it didn't really look like anything, but whatever. Let me reset. Echolink seems to react to the tail of its own transmission, so I have to wait even longer. But anyway, let's see. I remember there was one of the plans for the. This is off topic, but I was thinking about one of the plans for a return to the moon mission actually had a one astronaut space trip, the Artemis missions was was originally planned for one astronaut, I think. One of the weird things that no, this was I swear I remember some sort of NASA plan that literally had one astronaut going, which seemed kind of strange to me, to the moon. So maybe that's where they got that from. I don't know. Of course, for such a long trip, well, I don't know. They got 2 AIs. That's their crew. There's a few other things. I should have written some notes, but I didn't. I'm just gonna upload stuff at the top of my mind here, but I'm drawing too many blanks and I'm wasting time. So I guess I'll hand it over next person. KG5 BCW.
Okay, another down and one more to go. Well, maybe two if you include me. KI5 KWG Cruise, your thoughts on special effects. You've been waiting for this. Ready, willing, and able, so go ahead. Tell us what you think about special effects.
KI5 KWG, this will be short and sweet, but I want to prefix it with, this has been more fun than I remember. We also universally disliked this movie. It's just made it a whole lot of fun. I've loved the comments from all of you. Okay, let's see. I'll just read from my list here. I actually took notes while watching it. Number one, flying a shuttle like Spacecraft with no instruments or controls other than a flight stick, and he had to use both hands, all in an enormous and empty, underline empty, cockpit. So that was one. Already mentioned the cotton slacks, or maybe they were coveralls, and Tony. And let's see, number three, the plastic container, an ammo can, makes metallic sounds. I thought that was interesting. Did it repeatedly. And number four, this was my crown jewel of comments on this one, so y'all may want to get a pen out so you can quote me. The entire special effects budget spent at Dollar General store, and they got change back on that 20. So that's what I have to say on the special effects. And back to you, Net, KI5, KWG.
Oh, thank you. I noticed the ammo can, too. I thought, I'm sure that's a ammo can painted white, and I think Tony mentioned it, or at least made kind of a slight comment about it, but it drove me nuts. We got this astronaut. He's got this ammo can. First off, he didn't know how big anything he was going to bring back. Maybe this thing was this, house. Is he going to bring back a piece of it? Or what? If you're going to also put it in an empty ammo can, shouldn't it be filled with some sort of suspensory material or something so it doesn't go rattling around like it was on this thing? The ball is inside. Maybe. What if it was made out of something other than, I don't know, cheap plastic, which is apparently what it was made from, but it was made out of some delicate material, maybe ultra fine, what do they call that stuff? That suspense material that you touch it and it breaks apart, but it weighs virtually nothing. It just shows up with an ammo can. What the heck is that about? And then when he gets the ammo can, he has no place to hook it. Why didn't he have a utility belt like Batman? Or something to attach it like they do like the regular Apollo astronauts. Where can I put things? Well, there's a little spot, there's a little pocket thing. You can put it in, or you can wrap it around your arm with a lanyard. Anything. Instead, he's carrying it around, and of course he drops it. Surprise, surprise. The stupid NASA astronaut didn't even bother He's got to climb a mountain. He's got the ammo can in one hand, so he can't climb with that one. And he's got 2 minutes to get back to his cardboard spaceship. Who thinks this stuff up? Obviously, the stupid people at the stupid NASA. So you gotta wonder. Any rate, okay, let's see, my comments. As usual, gravity always plays into this. The 1G is everywhere, and there's a C, well, there's two C's that drive me nuts. But one of them is when the winged, X-56 or whatever the heck that thing was, the thing with lots of space in it, going back to the spaceship that has lots of space in it but nothing inside, he returns and he parks that thing and backs it in. Okay, fine. And he goes through the hatch that they can't afford to show us, the hatch to go through and into the mother ship. Well, folks, I got news for you. When that thing's rotating, the gravity is... How is the gravity working on that thing? It's not working with... I'm trying to think. Maybe it does. Oh, I guess maybe it would. Never mind. I thought maybe the gravity wouldn't work because it was either the wrong way. Oh, well, never mind. I guess it's okay. I stand corrected. So I was going to rip that apart, but I'm wrong. Wrong, I tell you. Let me see. Was there something else? Hang on. Okay, final thing on this then. The Oort cloud and heading out there in his spaceship and that. Where are all the supplies? There's nothing on board. It's empty. Apparently they forgot to, order stuff through, I don't know, Amazon or something to fill the spaceship up with supplies. It's just kind of empty with just the one guy on board. That didn't make any sense to me, so I thought that was a bit odd. What else was there? Special effects. Well, they had for special effects that one old LCD display that they found somewhere from 1999 or something that he used. That was supposedly touch screen. Maybe it was, doesn't matter. And it's attached by some sort of thing they picked up over at Home Depot to hold it against the cardboard wall. You'd press it and the wall would move, the thing would move, yeah, that's all great. So, nothing there to write home about. So I guess that's basically it. I don't have anything else. Let me go ahead and ask if anybody else would like to check in. If you do, please come with your call sign, your name, and did you see Magellan from KE5ICS?
W5BLT, Bill. Garland, Whiskey 5, Bacon, Lettuce, Tomato. I did see the movie, a little out of it on Muscle Rocks or so, just listening. No other comments, but enjoy everybody else's comments tonight. Thanks.
Okay, well, Bill, welcome back. I'm glad you're here and you did see the movie. You sure you didn't have any comments you wanted to make? Anything at all? You may have the final word here.
I just had a real hard time getting out of the movie. It was it was pretty bad. I agree with everybody's comments. Not sure how this astronaut even stayed alive. So I'm glad we have some higher standards in NASA. W5BLT.
Well, there you go, Bill. See, your comment suggests that it was unanimous. Everybody hated this movie for many different reasons. Most of them the same. So that's good. Or bad. If you're the director, it's bad. If it's us, it's good. Okay. Does anybody have any final comments they want to bring to the net this evening? Please come with your call.
KI5KWG, got a last thought.
WB5OZL, me too.
All right, put on, got a little breather there in between the rounds. Put those boxing gloves on, and we'll start with Cruise, KI5KWG. Go ahead.
Yeah, Tom, you were mentioning the play on the names of Tony Nelson and Major Healy. I can't think of that right now. That triggered a memory of a mockumentary that came out probably early 80s, I'm thinking. May have been later than that. A bunch of Woody Allen jokes, if you caught them. And it was spoofing kind of on the subject. It's been years since I've seen it. Kind of on the subject of the moon landings all being faked, but it got just wild and crazy. And a lot of people didn't realize it was a mockumentary, that it was actually a comedy. And I seem to remember they used that same gag, if you will, as the astronaut that they're interviewing. And, you know, most of us from my generation know who the actual astronauts were during those days. But he was, last name of one of them was Poole, but they did the same thing as they used different astronaut names from fiction, if I recall, and Poole being the one in 2001. And I was thinking, if y'all can think of what that film is, I've wondered if you all have ever done a review of it. It was a lot of fun. So I'd leave that there, and if you can think of it, and if you haven't reviewed it, maybe that's something we could have some more fun with as well. And this is back to you, Net, KI5KWG.
Thank you, Chris. Is it actually a Woody Allen film? I'm not familiar with it. Is it an actual Woody Allen film, or is it something else?
Yeah, negative. It has a bunch of jokes about Woody Allen that are kind of from that perspective. It's been a long time. I actually did write a review on it one time, trying to note all the different jokes in it, and I just cannot think of the name. And I'll look for it and see what I can come up with. Maybe I'll send you an email. But no, I enjoyed it. Thought it was funny in a very unique sort of way.
All right. Well, if you find out what it is, let me know, or just shoot me an email or something, and we'll go from there. I love comedy, especially science fiction films or something to that effect. And I always threaten at the museum to talk about movie astronauts, you know, like who's the last man to walk on the moon? Well, you and I know it's Gene Cernan, but everybody else, it's Steve Austin, the $6 million man. So, and he flew Iron Man 1, I think it was, the mission. In any case, just interesting things to discuss. All right, WB5OZL, Miss Brenda, you have the last word, I believe. Go right ahead from KE5ICX.
WB5OZL. I think we should offer to be fixers and change this movie up so that it's watchable. The first thing I would do is have him perform an emergency appendectomy on himself halfway through the show. And because unlike some movies where the AI has arms and tools and knowledge of human anatomy and could do that, but that's gonna be a real dramatic thing when he has to do that. And then let's bring the wife in with we just talk about her mental breakdown. We don't really see it. We need to have a full display of that as she goes full mental on him over and over and over and over, and she won't shut up. And then these, I don't know, let's have these little balls trying to kill him. And they're skulking around the spaceship trying to do him in. There just isn't enough drama in this show. Anyway, something to think about. Back to net, WB50ZL.
Brenda, I think you're on to something. We should do our own story. Let's work on that. We'll get everybody involved and we'll do our own version of this movie, and it'll be all so much better. I can sense it. Because these guys, this is their first serious science fiction film, but they didn't bother to talk to anybody who does serious science fiction. Sad but true. They just watched a bunch of movies and shared a bong, and somehow or another they came up with whatever this was. They had no money and no brains and no hope. And no audience, I assume, because there's not even a Wikipedia on this thing, and everybody has a Wikipedia. I think I have a Wikipedia. So if you don't have a Wikipedia, nobody cares. Nobody cares. And I think that's where this ends. Nobody cares. Okay, any other final comments? Because I'm going to tell you what the movie is. You think about whether you got anything else to say. I'm going to look for next week's movie. So, I'm going to call if you do. All right, next week's movie will be, I had nothing to do with picking this. It is, and I'm not sure how good this is, it's from 2010. It's called Malice in Wonderland. Alice in Wonderland will be the movie next week, and I will double check it and make sure that it meets our low standards. I've never seen it before. Like most of the movies we've reviewed and seen, I've never seen it before, so you never know. Could be good, could be a dud. All right, everyone, thank you. We made it through the evening and made it to 12 o'clock every time. Somehow that happens. And I'll see you next week. This is KE5ICX. I'm clear, and keep looking to the skies.